Russian President Vladimir Putin paid a visit to China last week, but didn't make a stop in North Korea, despite watchers believing that a stop-off was possible. Why skip another meeting with Kim Jong-un? Let's turn to Stephen Noerper, the president of Asia Dialogue. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be back.
The Kremlin announced over the weekend that preparations for Putin's North Korea visit are well underway. Now, does that mean a trip to North Korea last week was not at all part of the plan?
It is clear that the Russians want to meet with both the North Koreans and the Vietnamese. So I would anticipate that Putin's expectation is to be meeting with Kim Jong-un sometime relatively soon. And it probably doesn't completely rely on last week in the sense that the real focus for Russia was with China and Putin's relationship with Xi. But do look down the line for a meeting in the near term with the North Koreans, most likely.
Let's talk about Putin's China visit then. He and Xi Jinping showed off their, bromance, calling each other friends and even hugging each other. Now, are they genuinely good friends now, or is this some kind of, strategic show?
Well, there does seem to be a bond between the leaders. It was their 43rd meeting. Clearly, from our perspective outside, it would seem to be the bromance of autocrats. I mean, really two so-called strongmen who are participating in consolidations of regimes that are not popular with the United States, South Korea, Japan, and their allies. And so it's important for the two of those leaders to be shoring up their relationship relative to Russia's wanting more steadfast Chinese support on Ukraine, perhaps ways of getting material in and increasing even further the trade with Russia to foster its campaign in Ukraine. And of course, China is looking for support from Russia on the Taiwan issue. There are differences between the two, but this was designed to be highly symbolic of a warming friendship and an increased relationship that puts international relations in a different guise, one where Russia and China square off alongside North Korea, Iran, and others against the United States, Europe, and other Western interests.
Definitely. And North Korea also kept a close eye on the summit, with the state-run newspaper Rodong Sinmun publishing a detailed report on the Putin-Xi summit. Why is that?
Well, North Korea would very much like to be seen alongside of Russia and China as the third player in that axis. Kim Jong-un would see nothing but an ability to show to the North Korean people that China and Russia seem to be succeeding in their bonding, especially against the United States and the Western powers. So this clearly is within the DPRK's worldview and reassures and shores up support for Kim Jong-un. And of course, with a likely meeting between Putin and Kim Jong-un yet again, and the relative success from their perspective of the first one in Vladivostok, there would seem to be a heady steam to try to present North Korea closer to Russia continually. And of course, that's a major card against the United States, South Korea, and Japan as well.
Indeed. We also have to talk about North Korea's test firing of what it called a tactical ballistic missile last Friday. What's notable is that the launch came during Putin's visit to China, which is an unusual move, for Pyongyang. Why such a launch before Putin's trip to China ended?
Well, it really wasn't designed around that visit. I mean, if anything, if there was a slight consideration, it would have been to show DPRK capabilities to the Chinese and Russian leaders. Really, it was designed in response to U.S. and ROK exercises. And it was designed as a counterweight to that to show their disapproval. And so the fact that they did that limited missile exercise was really geared in that direction and less about the Xi-Putin meeting.
Right, and also right before that launch, a North Korean leader, Sister Kim Jong-un, also said the regime's missiles are for use against South Korea. Now, what is her intention by saying this?
Well, she's continuing on behalf of Kim Jong-un and the regime to try to paint the DPRK via the ROK in a two-state system. So they really want to be seen, in particular by people like Xi and Putin, as having their own merit, as representing their own entity. That seems to be a disadvantage for us. Of course, we'd like the language of unification back, but they have disavowed that earlier this year. And so what we need to be prepared for is dealing with this in terms of more state-to-state realities, but maybe there's opportunities on the floor of the United Nations or elsewhere to push North Korea in this regard. It does remind us, though, that we need in place a very good regime for monitoring, for sanctions, and that there is a broader concern about DPRK missile and nuclear development. They're simply taking advantage of their relationship with Russia and China in doing so, and to paint this as against the ROK also drives a wedge further in and tries to create a domestic rationale that, from the Kim Jong-un perspective, shows legitimacy to its regime.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much for your insights. As always, we appreciate it.
Thank you. A pleasure.